Welcome. Good to see you. Someone can thank you, Angie. Good morning. Just wanted to know that it works for real. Today, we pray for the transformation we're in, for the way in which we tune to the new beginning. As our minds are spinning through tragedy, amplified by emotional chaos, triggered by a force of destruction. There is a force of destruction loose in the world now. It's strong. Be conscious not to call such things by names. It's the world's force. It's time for changes. It is ours to tune in to the way we change. And when we change within ourselves, when we allow the force to sweep through us, we learn how to move out of the way of the literal fire. There's a spiritual fire that moves through us that destroys the old, that which is not love. We have been living in a world that is not love. It's karma. It's very literally driven by karma. And it has an end. There's a purpose to this. Being present with the purpose allows you to be loving in the face of the changes. Before they rearrange you, allow yourself to trust that this rearrangement is for us. It is designed for us. And letting go of that which we've held as ours, or reality itself, is part of this trust. This trust is here. It is present, and it is up to each of us to struggle to stay in tune with it when we're drawn away, and to recognize that it is parts of ourself that we have known is good, perhaps, that have actually been coping mechanisms, placeholders for true possibility. Placeholders, stuff that's like scaffolding for a future that is. It's here if you let it be. This is not meant to be poetic. This is literal. The future is not in the future. The future is present. It's an energy. Amidst the swirl and chaos of the many different energies that are alive within you, there is the presence of an energy that is more rich, deep, true, loving. It's the seed of that which will be dominant in the world soon, sooner than you may think. But in the process, this seed is preceded by fire. This seed is ignited by a wild flowing fire that does have a real world analogy. And it is up to us to enable, to support, to allow the spiritual fire to sweep through and do the work it needs to do, so that physical fire is not necessary. And it is not our job to champion physical destruction. It isn't. To be present with the destructive force and to recognize it for what it is, to honor it, and even to identify with it at times, is a very deep challenge to what many of us know of as good and evil. There's a repeated surrender to the trust of the love of the world. No one or thing will ask you to let go of love. No, this is a path into love. But your idea of what love is may well be broader and deeper than those around you. Today, we're here to talk about how spiritual transformation impacts our families, and What is the healthiest way to embrace this? Full disclaimer, I don't consider myself an expert at this. I am sharing what I do trust, and I am channeling the guidance that I'm following to go deeper. And part of my work is to share it. Part of my work is to share what I'm learning from a place of humility. Like, I am fucking this up more than I want to. I am living too often with a sense of burden, like, oh man, I didn't do that well. And yet when I reach to share what I'm learning, I'm unable to step into it because I feel like I'm not good enough to hold space as a teacher on this. So this is a different kind of role I'm playing. Some elements I can hold space as, a teacher or guide. And as we edge into those areas where I'm simply sharing what I'm being taught, we'll see what happens next. Angie, thank you for being here. Good morning to you, and Misty as well. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, and how do you do? Erica, it's so good to have you here. Sarah. Well, guys, ladies, gentlemen, Tom, I'm so glad you're here. This is it. This is the time. First of all, I'd like to invite you to presence your heritage. What is your spiritual heritage, whether positive or negative? All of it, including the potential that you were raised by people who repressed their own spirituality because it was demonized. Many of us have a witch in the family who had to hide it. Then there's the layers upon layers of ancient traditions that survived in one way or another. The Irish pagans, the Irish nature spirit loving way, hid in hedges. They taught their children in hedges to hide from the British and then the Catholics. They kept their tradition going despite the oppression from the world around them. Now, in many ways, the world does this. In many ways, this happens within the world as it's been. And here we are at the end of the day when I offer to you that basically none of the ancient traditions have the answers. I've lived with all sorts of different spiritual communities and been the guests of others. And in my experience, none of them have the answer for what the future is. Because the future, the For You tour that we are being invited into, it's for you. It's for us in a new way of being. And it's an entire way. Spirituality is not something we go to and then go back to normal life as if there's a back and forth. This is about opening an entire dimension of reality and living within it as normal. And as such, the answers, the ways, the practices that work 20 years from now, the same practices we need now are very different than our expectations might offer. And within this comes a certain set of new rules. We're not establishing a new religion. Nobody is. And anybody who tries to allow, that there's no comparison to the way in which spirituality and religion played a role in the past. We are entering an entirely different way of being, where the energy of the entire earth is shifting to hold space for humanity in a fundamentally different way than we even know how to imagine. And the act of imagining and being present into it draws it more into life. We find the future within ourselves, even though it's tiny, and by breathing life into it, it gets more present. So we do the work of bringing it into reality. And at first, this is selfish. So on any level you've been taught that selfishness is negative, set this aside and respect that we are transcending to a space where selfless and selfish, serving others and serving ourselves, become the same thing. There's a unity of these forces as you correctly understand what your true needs are. Next. by setting aside comparisons to the past, like my wife's Jewish and I'm Christian or whatever, we can put ourselves into a position where, as we embrace this kind of spiritual presence within ourselves, we don't need to think in terms of I am this and my wife is this, or I am this and my mother is this, or my children are this. You need to set down the need for anybody else to copy you. Yet. Try that on. Let's just try that on. And we're gonna do a minute of it, all right? So I'm going to invite you to breathe into your root. And allow a trust that there is a configuration of consciousness that can be present in your root that works. Now, today, it's healthy. It allows you to trust and rest in your relationship to those around you without denying yourself or hiding yourself, and without dominating them or putting pressure on them that is ineffective. And thus shift your attention up to your chin and breathe with this trust. Before you understand it, trust that this exists. And then breathe down into your navel and say, who are you then? Who are you? And allow this to be an expression of action. Just do it. The answer to many of these questions is set aside your ideas that are in relationship to I am a Christian, I am a Buddhist, I am a pagan, I am a shaman. Set all these things down and just do what you need to do. So you're going to get your spiritual practice into your life. And you're going to, look, family, I need this. I'm an asshole when I don't get this. All of you say that, men, women, everybody, frame it that way. If you don't want to use the word, that's fine. To your family, you say, I need this. I need this. You don't have to do this. Now, there's an undercurrent of, are they going too far away? Are they leaving me? Are they becoming something else? Am I going too far away? Am I going to be able to maintain my relationship? You got to stop it. You need this. This is the ground from which all other questions and understandings begin. And the way to make this real is to trust it. You do it. This is the action of the navel. I am someone who needs my practice every day. I literally tried not practicing on Saturday on purpose. And by the afternoon, I was a hot mess. And then I did my practice and I was kind and loving for the rest of the day. It was absurd, the level of difference. And there's a beauty in allowing this kind of emotional presence to catalyze your focus on what you need to do to take care of yourself. So in many ways, this is the first answer I give you. I sense, I know from talking to you, I know from past experience that many of you are struggling with centering these themes in your life because of these challenges about identity. Who am I? Who am I in my marriage? I am changing myself and it's disturbing my family. And you can be in an extraordinary space of compassion for the people in your family, because it's very unsettling when someone changes patterns that have been the same. And by encouraging yourself to trust that this is medicine for what's going wrong for you, and you begin there. You need this. You are going to be present. We will be present with each other to help answer the next questions. In fact, tomorrow we're going to do a live meet at 2 to talk about this. So a live Google Meet at 2. And if anyone who is not in the membership space is interested, message me, because I want to make this a little bit more open. But we're going to be sharing it within the sanctuary, the Wildflowerfire sanctuary. This is a very powerful and important question. Next, magic. I want you to understand something. This is magic. Life is vibration. Reality is composed of vibration. When I say you have a cord, people typically understand this. This has cachet, right? Like you could do a search on YouTube for cord cutting, right? This is a concept. 20 years ago, my girlfriend, I had a girlfriend who this is something she did. I met her at an incredible dance community. She was a healer, and I was very inspired. She was getting paid to do these healing sessions, and she seemed to be making up a fair amount of what she was doing. That's what it looked like to me. How could you just make this up and make a reality? And yet something about it worked. Cord cutting was at the heart of it. It was this idea that we have cords that attach us to people, right? And then you can imagine cutting them. At a certain point, this is one of the funniest examples I can make, and this is where we're going to begin explaining it. At a certain point, I had a very difficult relationship with a man named Peter. It was years, a long time ago. I had an enormous amount of very high quality cannabis, and I was selling it, and I had the opportunity to keep getting it. And one of the shipments got lost in the mail, and I went into a meltdown, just like a panic, like I was making money this way. And then I just tuned in, and believe it or not, I did my practice at the time. And God, this is not your fucking job. And that's why I got taken. And when I said, okay, this is not my job, I had been in a deal with a man named Peter. And Peter was not happy that I was changing this. He liked my high quality cannabis from California. He liked the idea that he was going to be getting good deals. I don't know what it was. Peter freaked out on me. Now, I'm not accustomed to being in confrontations that I can't hold a bigger space of love for, but I could feel the guy attacking me in my mind. It was unbelievable how intense it was. And it was a while. It was days and days of this. The connection that we shared was a cord. That connection was a dramatic example of something that we share with all sorts of people from throughout our lives. And the important element here is we share cords that are calmer, but involve a great amount of energy. So we hold connections with people for years. And within that connection is essentially a deal. We will share energy on this cord. And as a result, we will both supposedly be better off. But in reality, when you share energy on a cord with someone who's no longer in your life, what you're doing is a karmic trade. And in that trade, neither of you are really getting a good deal. Why, you may ask? Because you don't have that energy available to transform into something else. So you essentially have not mastered that energy to the extent where you can consciously and intentionally rechannel it, transform it, alchemize it, and add your full life force to whatever it is you really want to create. You essentially choose to sacrifice a part of yourself because for whatever reason, the karma, the patterns of momentum in your spiritual life on that frequency are out of hand. You don't know how to channel them. They make you into a person you don't want to be. When you claim responsibility for these, you start to become present with cords that have been latent. You haven't been paying attention to them. And those cords are operating on frequencies within you. And those frequencies sound like a chord. This is the magic. This is the key. They sound like a chord. So what's happening is, in your life, you've got these cords running all the time, making an energetic frequency. And on that energetic frequency, each person is pitting karma against each other to neutralize it. That's the basic foundation of these deals. And when you get to a point in your life where you're ready to take fuller, deeper responsibility, life is going to show you a window into a vision, into a dream, into a hope that involves all of your spirit. You will get a window into something that is possible, but it's a little bit of it's a little, I don't know how to term these. Then life goes, oh, by the way, this is not possible now because you are getting rid of all this energy through your karmic cords. So, what you need to do, wait, get it? People try to cut cords, right? Because they're framing it in a 3D conception of a literal connection. But of course, you don't have a literal rope tying you to someone else now, do you? When you conceptualize the connection in this way, you can actually shift. And in the case of Peter, I made a deep prayer to essentially do a cord cutting, and it worked. I had to get down into the depths. I had to address the fact that, I had some history with this guy. We love some of the same people, one woman in particular. We had strong presence. And with that being said, I appreciated him on many levels. Like he was a person that I wish I could have bridged that gap with, but this was past my limits. I was at my wit's end. You have to get to your wit's end for a cord cutting to work. If you can't just casually go, yeah, I'm sick of this, I'm going to cut it. No, you got to get into the emotion of this is unacceptable, because that's where you get your presence into the intensity of resonance necessary to cut a cord. But here's the trick. If you cut that cord effectively using a 3-dimensional conception that you're going to cut it, something can happen. You can actually end that relationship, presuming that you don't have the kind of karma that is non-negotiable, like karma from beyond this lifetime. If you've generated the karma in this life, and many such connections are generated within this life, you may well have the opportunity to change it, but guess what's going to happen? You're just going to replace that exact pattern with someone else. Now, many of you know this already. How many of you have had a relationship that's dysfunctional in one certain way? You decided it was unacceptable, and only, a little bit later, you find someone similar enough, not the same. You choose them more. You convince yourself they're better for this and that reason. But realistically, part of the reason that you're magnetized to them is because there's a deep familiarity to the way your energy flows with them. Now, understand, energy flow is about familiarity of presence. Very dysfunctional patterns can feel good energetically. Ooh, try that on. Very dysfunctional patterns. Patterns that result in yelling and degrading each other, patterns that result in revenge and belittling. That exchange, if it's familiar to two people, will feel good energetically. Now, it won't feel good emotionally. It won't feel good mentally. It might not feel good physically if it gets that bad. But it will feel good energetically. So you can't just go with it without understanding why. Now, energetic patterns that have that kind of strength, it's often a good idea you go with it to heal the karma. But you have to understand that's what's going on. And here is how it works. Rather than trying to cut the cord, which is essentially a desire to just get rid of your own negative energy, you have to say, I take responsibility for my energy. You start with that. I take full responsibility. I'm not a victim. They aren't a narcissistic abuser. Now, they might be, but you're not thinking about it that way. You're not putting it on them that they victimized you. You can see it clearly. You can see that they behave that way clearly, but you have to rein in whatever is yours. That's where your power is. It's not blaming you, particularly in the extreme. It's not blaming you. It's saying you want to withdraw your energy. You can't just cut it. How do you do that? You change the cord. Now, you can't see this very well necessarily, but this is an A minor. And then all I'm doing is changing this one string up one. This is an A major. It is one of the easiest chords to change because you're only changing one note, one step. Of all the other notes stay the same. What that looks like in your energy field is that you're going to isolate the connection that you share with this other person. And you're going to look for a key element of the equation, one, that you can change. One. Now, this might take a little while to process, but be present with this because this is sheer magic, all right? Here is one of the most common patterns. It's a heart-based chord. So in this chord, this is E minor. So this is a minor chord of the heart. Just trust me on this. What that means is it's heart, chin, and crown together. It sounds very, very good. When we want to change a connection with someone else, particularly from the heart, this is the most common place to begin for chord cutting. And here's how you do it. You say heart, chin, crown. Heart, chin, crown. The simplest change to make is to go heart, nose tip, crown. That makes it from this to this. E major, E minor, E major. Now, what does that look like? What that looks like is you have energy invested in just trusting your way of life with someone. Now, trust doesn't always look like trust or trust. What I'm saying is you're not looking at something. You're just living the way you live over and over again because this is who you are. This is who you are with them. And you have to begin to question a core element of your relationship. And what that starts with is you're going to shift energy from your chin into your nose tip. What does that look like? You're going to start identifying that despite everything that your mind tells you, you're not happy enough. Things are going wrong. Things are not working well in a healthy way. Health then begins with what is your own system telling you you need that you're not getting. This is why we begin with the spiritual practice. When you start prioritizing a spiritual practice, particularly when you have not had one, you can trust that this is a basic need in your life. This is a basic foundation of retuning yourself because you're not just giving yourself 20 minutes to an hour of time. That time is enabling you to tune into what else you need. This is retuning you. It's not just rejuvenating you, restoring you, dealing with stress, empowering you, using up energy, focusing you. It does all these things. It also tunes you to recognize what else you need. And when you do this, you are fundamentally changing the connection you have with other people. And you're changing it in a very simple way. And I'm letting you know this is accessible. Now, it's challenging, particularly within your family. Within your family, what you're essentially saying is, I need to carve out this time. And I'm choosing to spend my time prioritizing this and not prioritizing something that, everybody wants to do together, perhaps. Or you guys are all used to be giving and taking care of you or this or that, or you guys are all used to me being present for you in this or that way. And I'm saying I need to do that. This is a foundation of my life. And thus I'm changing energy from heart, chin, crown to heart, nose tip, crown. And I'm telling you, this then fundamentally changes the karma. What you've done is you've taken the same energy and you've bent it. You're not just severing it, but effectively you are ending the patterns, the rhythm of sharing that has been normal. And as a result, people around you are going to react in different ways. And here is the thing that I am challenging each of you with. Respect them. First and foremost, you need to not derive any self-esteem from the idea that you are better, that you are more spiritual, that you are more advanced than they are. And I know very few spiritual people who start a yoga practice or meditate who don't at least struggle with this at first. As soon as you start to take care of yourself in this way, it's like everybody else should do this too. Stop it. Let your presence be the catalyst for transformation. Your words are not the point. Much of the intentionality of a spiritual practice is to have the time with your body and your spirit in the yoga mat and to channel your mind into basics of like remembering how to do sequences. Your mind has work to do, but it's all about what sequences work well together. How do I breathe properly in this pose? How do I watch the rhythm of my breathing so I know when to move and when to be still? How do I recognize resonance? How do I focus my attention into resonance and adjust my breathing to be present with resonance? That's where your mind belongs. Your mind does not belong arguing with your loved ones that they should do this, this, or this. In fact, you don't fucking know. You don't know. I've been extraordinarily convinced that my wife should do more yoga. How could she possibly not need to do more yoga? You know what she's been doing? Getting up, taking a cold shower, and going on a walk before the kids get up. That is working well for her. And she needed this before she needed yoga. Thankfully, I've partly, largely incorporated this lesson, so I haven't put that much pressure on her. But in my day, I have. In fact, when I started changing, I was desperate to convince all my friends, my closest friends, and my family to do it with me because I didn't want to leave them behind. And that was about my loneliness. That was about my fear that I would lose their company, my fear that I would lose the life I'd known. And I did. I lost the life I'd known. And that's the thing. When we make choices to change, there's a real difference between me making a choice to change based on guidance that has largely been felt within me and someone near me is forced to change because I changed the deal. I changed the pattern that I live within. I asserted a new presence, and they have to hear this new music. They have to hear life go from to. They're not used to that. I just dramatically unsettled their world. There's a real humility to this, and it starts with the sense, let them make their own choices next. Let them tune into their own guidance to know what happens next. Because down the road, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful when someone you love actually comes to you and says, hey, can you tell me about what you're learning? I now do chakra check-ins with my family. My son is asking me for them as well, but I never offer it. I wait until they ask. And if they don't ask, I presume they need some space. In fact, to learn to do it, I had to, just the other day, I had a dramatically insightful vision of what was happening for my wife. And I went from sharing an accurate sense of what was happening to offering my interpretation, still offering my interpretation. And my insight was correct and my interpretation was not. And I can't tell you how many supposedly spiritual people I see who do this. I do this still. Thankfully, I laugh at it, and we've developed the dynamic where Tali is able to say, yo, dude, I think that was you being husband, not you being healer. And I'm like, yeah. I piggybacked my own desire to convince her of something on top of my insight, and my insight was correct, and my interpretation was not. So I saw an unbelievable wash of red. It was really intense. And I watched it just like, I couldn't even read her other chakras. I just saw this weird red. And I've never seen anything like it. It was really intense. And I shared it, and then I immediately went mental. And I said, I think it was Saturday. I'm like, she's Jewish heritage. And I'm like, I think that you have, a strong Jewish force trying to come in and tell you to treat this as Shabbat. Maybe we should rest today and just, not do anything else because it's Shabbat. And about 2 hours later, she found out she just started her cycle. As it so happens, my guidance was a little bit healthy, but probably for the wrong reasons. It was a good idea to rest. But that wave of red was that she'd started to bleed. So I share these by way of like the depths of humility of how little you can actually help people and how little it takes to do that effectively. Meaning, so much of what you might have the instinct to share is not actually helpful. But the key elements that can help are often simple, and they don't require worry or stress. They require you to be present and humble and allow people who love you to come to you and to ask for your insight when they are ready. So, go kidsy. That's a really healthy way. Sorry, Tom. Major minor chords. Yes, and Kinsey, the way I contend with that is rather daunting, to be honest. Because at the end of the day, I am encouraging you to recognize that in many ways that you need to be leaders, but you need to be leaders in a different form than perhaps you've been taught to think. This is not a matter of they're going to do what you say for the most part, in my experience. This is a matter of you are going to do what you need, and you are going to be present and show up. And what that looks like is, particularly when someone's doing something damaging to themselves or others, you have to stay with it. It's really awful. You have to stay with it and look at it. It's painful. It's painful. It's more pleasant to avoid it or numb these things out. When you have to look at the pain in the people you love, there's an instinctive urge to like drive towards changing it, right? But to be present and to say, what can I do that's actually going to be helpful? Different story. Very often, I would say normally, it is counterproductive for me to use spiritual language in such circumstances. What I need to do is hold my insight still long enough that I can reframe it in a different way. Often that involves, like, I see someone I love in pain. I have an instinct to give them my interpretation. I still do this way too much. I still give them my interpretations too much, and I'm working hard to restrain it. And part of sharing this today, I believe, will help me go to the next level of really maintaining this intention. To hold my interpretation with the humility that A, I might be wrong, B, it's very likely not the right time to share it. Those are two powerful reasons to keep my mouth shut. And when I hold it that way, two things usually happen. It almost always changes. My first interpretation doesn't stay quite the same. It'll bend. And in the process of bending, I'm able to identify, oh, that part was for me. Part of me is projecting still. Part of me is reaching to explain a problem I see in them that really I'm still not at peace with within myself. And thus, I don't see it clearly. And as I separate out me from them, I see something different. Now I know I'm looking at something that's me. So when I could take this down and just see them, of course, I'm looking at myself in the damn monitor. And when I take this down and just see them, we go back to the presence. We go back to the presence of being there and just turning it into another prayer. How can I actually be helpful? I can't tell you how many times that prayer is the right pause that changes my behavior in relation to the people I love. I'm getting angry, like convinced that my behavior, like my response is necessary to help catalyze change. convinced that my frustration is righteous. And if I presence the question, how can I actually be helpful in these circumstances? That's when magic happens. And it's akin to changing the chord. It's often a shift of one note within the process that's connecting me to them, but it's a fundamental shift that enables both of us to relate to each other in a different way. And in many cases, in most cases, I discovered that this is better than me being patient until they learn what I have to tell them. Sometimes that's the case. There are some situations where that's the case. But mostly, it's me being patient long enough to allow my insight to change and them to open up to it in a way that they're usually bringing something very, very crucial to the table that then enables me to see life differently. And the trust over time, again and again and again, that's my 6-year-old son. Is he as spiritual as me? Yeah. My 6-year-old son is able to bring something to the table that catalyzes my change. I've had a real hard time with these, and changing it involves doing a lot of work around what it is to be a spiritual person. And that's why we began where we began, and I'm going to bring it into this space and be a little more engaging. Set down ideas of yourself. You're going to be able to go out into the world and find other people who are like, they'll be spiritual beings with you. They'll talk down their family. They'll insult their family. They'll share with you the things, the events, whatever it is, yoga even. But the way they relate to these things is just another identity game. Pause for, when I started yoga, I was insulted, threatened with assault, told I was gay regularly. 20 years ago, just 20 years ago, 23, 4 years ago. Nowadays, it's like I got my tattoos and I'm a badass, yo. Get the fuck out of here. Like, you can misuse it to just be another social construct. Now, it's still healthy to do it, but you've got this whole layer of self-identity thing happening. I'm inviting you into it in a way that just set down the self-identity and just do it. Just do it. It's an action. You set aside time for your spiritual practice. You encourage and need respect from the people who love you. That's it. They don't have to look up to you. They just need to respect this time is healthy for you. They can't resent you for it. And then give them a space to share the joy you create for yourself. Not, oh, I want you to do it with me. Be a nicer person. Be more patient. The other day, like I can't even tell you. Saturday, I mentioned, I tried. I didn't do yoga when I got up. I almost always have to do some yoga when I get up. I didn't do any yoga. And by the afternoon, the early afternoon, my son and my wife were talking at the same time. My daughter was like playing on a tambourine, and my head was going through the roof. I couldn't even feel my own body. I was just in the dissonance between the rest of them. I need my spiritual practice to be myself. And when I do this practice, I'm present I can feel myself. My body is a pleasant space to be. And I'm able to stay attuned with the more blissful feelings that I've generated and have this patience with everybody else. That's it. That's a gift. You bring that gift to everyone you love. They just need to appreciate it. Don't give them a reason not to. Don't feel superior or prophetic, like, oh, you've got to do this too. You got to do, maybe they don't. I don't fucking know. Like, maybe they need 3 years of, getting into gardening, and that's all they need. And for whatever reason, nothing else is necessary. Who knows? Who knows? Now, look, I do think that there's a time in everyone's life when it's going to become a pretty strong need to set aside a spiritual practice of some form. And no, I don't think everything is equal. I think there is something very special about the intentionality of setting aside a specific time and honing yourself. You come back again and again. You measure yourself against what you've done. You set yourself goals. You focus in a way that creates depth. I think this is a kind of experience that everyone needs at some point in their lives. But they may well need a lot of other things first. They might need to change their diet first. They might need all sorts of long lists of things that they need to focus their attention there. So just be easy, be gentle on how you respond to them. And now I'm talking about myself. So let's talk with each other a little more. Yes. So, Sarah, let's take this analogy really repeatedly, all right? Presume that you've got this connection going. This is a connection that holds a lot of the love we have that isn't exciting. listen to the chord. It's not going to make you want to get up and dance, right? This chord, literally, these frequencies hold the rhythm of life that gets sad and kind of, stuck. Wait, I don't want to put it down yet. The simple change to this chord is you're adding this. I'm just adding this one finger. That string is open. Now it's the fourth string. For those of you who want to know, the fourth string. Now it's the first fret of the fourth string. You could make a very different kind of music with that second string, and it starts with what are your absolutely clear personal needs. Now, for this to work, you have to trust that here's how the nose tip works. The nose tip is telling you things that are just kind of non-negotiable. You need a certain fundamental relationship to water. 8 ounces an hour, I just heard Andrew Huberman say. 8 ounces an hour for the first 10 hours of your day. You need good water. And you listen, and I mean, I've known this, but I like citing my sources for, anyway, recently, Sadhguru is talking about how crucial it is. You take water out and you put it in something. You don't just, I try to do this the night before. You want to let it sit hours. And if you can, even intentionally pray on it. The water loses a lot of its vibrancy and spiritual integrity on a molecular level when it goes through nasty pipes. This is a fundamental need. Your nose tip will tell you this. Your nose tip is looking for things like this. So the point is, these are non-negotiable things. You are going to make these changes in your life. And when you start putting these things first, I want to hear from any of you, all right? Who is experiencing resistance, either from people you love or within yourself, to making changes like this? Basic changes. First and foremost, you set aside time for a yoga practice. Is anyone in your core life resisting it? Let's talk about it, because believe me, I'm here to help you love them. I'm not here to say, tell them to fuck off or anything like that. I want this to work for you. But to experience the resistance often comes from this deeper space of just everyone feeling unsettled that your presence is changing in your own home. You've changed the chord. You've changed your values. You're changing your priorities, and it's uncomfortable and threatening to them. And you can have compassion for that if and when you commit to really doing it. Oh my gosh, Misty, that's so cool. I just looked back. Your middle son asked him to check his chakras. Oh my God, that's so cool. So, in order to understand the magic of these, you have to respect this real beauty. And I want to put better words to this than I ever have. We get windows into what's possible given to us spiritually. And there's a rhythm to this. I will explain it. Our diamond eye is the most dissonant chakra to the heart. Our diamond eye, it's very difficult to be present with the heart and diamond eye at the same time. And for that reason, the diamond eye is not a place you want to intentionally activate often. And when you do feel energy with your diamond eye, you want to pay an extra attention to it. Now, this is dreaming. Every morning when you wake up, you could try to tune into your dreams and get in touch with what they're trying to tell you. And every evening before you go to sleep, you can try to tune into what you might want to dream about. Visions of dramatic change often come through the diamond eye as well. And part of the purpose is to say, like, when somebody said, I had a vision that I would establish a school, that's the kind of thing that can last with you for a lifetime. Part of why it resonates that loudly is it's actually not in your heart. It's actually pulling you out of everything you know of as normal and placing you somewhat outside your body for a moment. Your full presence is in this awareness, and then you go back into your life. You don't want to live like that all the time. We're not designed to live like that all the time. And many people will spiritually bypass. They get so excited by the intensity of such an experience that they want to go back there. And a lot of hallucinogens are essentially a search for that kind of experience. And it's very detrimental because no matter what you experience or learn, you have to go back to your heart. All addictions function this way in one way or another. You're going to have to come back to your heart. And if you've used your heart as a garbage pit in order to get into psychedelic mysticism, then you have to go back to the garbage pit. I'm telling you, there is a rhythm that is healthy where periodically, and really it does work with the moon cycle. So we're talking monthly. There is an availability of a vision to presence itself to you. Now, this can work. It doesn't have to be strictly with a full moon. It can happen at different times. But the point of this is to respect the integrity of what happens when life gives you a clear enough sense of what's possible that's beyond everything you've known. Because in that window, you are being shown something that works beyond your normal. And then I'm telling you, the next step is to take an honest look at how you're digesting all your karma. Because that vision is real. It exists. If you're watching any law of attraction stuff at all, you need to be present with this. If you can imagine it in that way, it's present. That's the seed of the future of the reality. Now it's just about attuning yourself to it. And to attune yourself to it, you need to take an honest look at, well, where is your energy going? If you have a strict deal with anyone else that says, I am this person and I will remain this person, that could well be where your energy's tied up. And that what that looks like is you will have an idea that says, no, I can't really do that because I can't leave. No, I can't really do that because I can't break this deal. This is where cord cutting comes in. I'm here to invite you to prioritize doing this with the people you love. I am a big believer in having a wide space for those you love. Now I'm beginning to get really frustrated at how far away my vision of love and potential and possibility is from my daily reality. I get this with you in a way that is, a lot of people don't have this, right? And I live in the world. I walk to the coffee shop, I take my son to the park, and it just feels too far away. And that gap is something that we have to learn to bridge somehow. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm really excited to have a conversation with everybody. So we're going to have this tomorrow, 2:00 Eastern Standard. And it's just a start. If you can't make it, then, hopefully this is the kind of quality we'll continue to amplify in each other's lives, to just have a discussion about how you make your spiritual life work in relation to your family, in relation to the people around you who love you. Because I have so much guidance that suggests we really take it as cutting people out of your life should not be your first choice. It's simply, in my experience, not the right way. Making choices that may take you in a new direction, different. When we make choices that take us into a new sense of self, the healthiest way I know how to do that is to make the choices, embody it, all within space and struggle and perseverance that allows other people to then make their own choice. And in most cases in my life, that has been the healthiest way, where I essentially keep my fire burning and I stoke it a little higher and I say, I am staying here And people who can't dance with this make their own choice. And I find this to be a far saner, more loving place to rest than there are so many toxic people in my life. Like, I never use that phrase. I never use that phrase. Nobody is in your life who you aren't in their life. I find that people are extremely terrible judges of who is actually toxic in an equation. Usually it's both people. Usually something is toxic because it's a bad mix. You know, most toxins, most things that people call toxins weren't intrinsically toxic. There's something that went rotten. And it went rotten because somebody mixed, oh my God, I'm making this up now, but somebody mixed peanut sauce with tomato sauce. Yeah, I don't know. Give me a terrible combination. You know, two people had different flavors of life and they mixed and it just was awful. So it went rotten. And then they're like, this person is toxic. No, the way you share together is toxic. Stay humble. Stay humble. That's been my guiding light in this. All too often, I still find that I am heavily invested in things working as they are, that I am heavily stubborn about making the changes that are going to be most healthy. And despite all my practice and insight and wisdom and experience, I still make mistakes that are, oof, you know, really? Like, I didn't see that. Now I do. Like, it's tough. It's tough to know that there's so much work, but it is so much more beautiful. Because in taking this work on directly, it's like bringing light into the darkness. I actually really and truly love cleaning the fridge. In fact, I need to clean the fridge. I actually really and truly love pulling the stove away from the wall and cleaning behind the stove because those messes have always been there. I like what it feels like to get rid of them. We're already affected by the presence of rotten stuff in our life. And so to take on this attitude that it is really joyful and empowering to look for it on purpose, and then you remove it, and it's like you can feel the lightness emerging in your spirit. And that's my invitation to you. Yes, it seems like a lot more work, but it's so much more work to numb things out and suffer in the meantime. It's so much more work. And yes, it might be less volatile for periods. Yes, becoming healthy can sometimes evoke volatile changes in your relationships. And that isn't okay, but it's worth it. It's worth it to move through it and to keep recentering yourself on the love that heals and finds the light that began this in the first place. Because those visions you get of what's possible would not be given to you unless they are actually possible. Find the way you're talking yourself out of your deepest truth. Find the way you're talking yourself out of your deepest hope. Find your way that you are talking yourself out of the dreams that are calling you, because it is most likely that you are the key person talking yourself out of these dreams. No, it's not someone else's fault. They might give you the words, but if you choose to follow their words rather than stay tuned to your fire, you're simply avoiding the sense of helplessness that comes from stepping in a new direction and not knowing if they'll come with you. Because it's very powerless in most instances that I've encountered. I don't get to say, fine, fuck you, I'm breaking up with you. I get to say, I am going in this. I'm going to become this. I know that this is true to me. I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm going to lose you or them or who knows who. And to step through that fear and to leave people with the space and respect to make their own choices, it's very beautiful. Oh my gosh. Erica, that's incredible. That's really amazing, Erica. It really is. And I think that could be totally metaphorical, you know? Like, there's real power in doing the dishes. Like, I can't even tell you. It was my first major spiritual lesson. Thich Nhat Hanh, meditation on mindfulness. Miracle of Mindfulness. Do the dishes to do the dishes. I was 20, 21, and I read this little book and I really took that lesson in. I swear I have almost always enjoyed doing the dishes since then. And there's an art to being present with it, to finding the joy in exactly what you're doing, and other people might avoid these steps. And in many cases, when you take on spiritual life, you are actually cleaning stuff that's more than just yours. When I do yoga, I process energy for my whole family. When I do yoga, I process energy for people who I give sessions to. But I know that I can take on a certain range of intensity and dissonance because I do this work. And in many ways, doing a strong yoga practice is like doing the dishes. It's pretty hilarious. Guys, this is beautiful. I'm happy to share these themes with you, and I'm looking forward to doing readings with you soon. So for those of you who don't know, we are meeting in the sanctuary quite soon. I'll post the link when I come back. I'm sorry, I really wish I'd done it beforehand, but the link will be posted in the readings group. And when we click in, we'll do a meditation. Everyone will tune in and read yourself. And you're reading, you're doing your best to read. You look at yourself and you find out what your spirit's communicating. And by beginning with what you assess, hopefully over time, it's both an active gift. You will leave the time more able to understand what you can prioritize right now. And over time, you get better and better at it. And external insight, particularly mine, is supplementing and teaching you how to do that for yourself more and more. Talk with you soon. So much love. Oh, goodness. What is it? Something's lingering. I wanted to say something for myself. I didn't know whether I would have say it. I'm really, Shiva's helping me more than ever. He's been with me for a long time. I spent 1 year rejecting him, just one in the past 20 something years. But he's been talking to me more than ever, and he's been helping me come to terms with this destructive force, of which he knows well. He's suggesting that I really double down on saying a couple things. This system is incredible. It transcends many cultures. It tunes you with Thoth and Shiva. So the yogic path and the ancient Egyptian path that Thoth has given us, the Hermetic guidance. They're in union. So this puts you in a very different space that is also very close in relationship with many other traditions as well. This is a unity consciousness. Part of the deepest commitment to this is that we presence a refusal to demonize any particular vibration. So on no level are we allowing ourselves to play not in my backyard spiritually. It's really this direct. We play this way in life. I live in a wealthy community where I don't have to see my garbage, and my garbage is shipped and it is going to a place that is near where other people live, and they do have to see my garbage. Spiritually, we don't do this. That's what the key ring meditation is. We get this extraordinary gift of an expanded consciousness, which gives us windows into reality on levels well beyond anything I could anticipate, dimensions of color and possibility and potential, a sense of the presence of the living, loving spirit of the earth within us. And that comes at a cost we don't get to dump. The gift is immeasurable, but the cost is tough because most other communities dump. Whether communities are overtly spiritual or passively, every capitalist, that's a spirituality. They put their faith in this belief that the capitalist system, they can channel their greed in and it's going to functionally contribute to society. Capitalists, that's a spirituality. All different paths of ways of being are constructed around harmonic patterns. And most of the patterns that are currently dominant on the planet Earth are dumping energy. You don't have to understand exactly how it works to commit to not doing it that way. I'm basically saying, I'm teaching you that something exists that you might not have known exists, but it's basically saying we have to spiritually recycle. When I grew up, oh my God, do you remember those giant garbage bags? They stank. They were huge. We had a huge garbage bag and it stank. The concept of that now is absurd. We bring out a thing of compost almost every day, and almost all the stink is gone. I rinse wrappers. We never used to rinse a wrapper. I rinse wrappers that have meat or cheese in it. Never used to. It's the most basic of things. Don't put things in the wrong place. Take a basic level of responsibility for how you pass on your energy. It's the foundations of what we do. It is a tighter, stronger challenge than many people are willing to take on, and it doesn't change. We just have to get better at it. So I reiterate that, reinforce it, and I think I need to do it weekly. I will go post the link and be with you in about 5 minutes. Much love. Oh, Kinsey, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kinsey. All right, I'll see you all soon.